coming to you from an undisclosed location where I might be breaking the biggest story of the year, or not. So we're going to be experiencing two realities at once. It's sort of a Schrodinger's cat of periscopes today. In one reality, you're going to hear the most shocking thing you've heard in a long time. But it might not be true. So I'm going to ask you to fact check it. And you can. This is the exciting part. I'm going to give you the biggest story of the year that might not be true. But you get to check it yourself. Turns out that when you try to connect some apps to Twitter, to make your apps work together, you have to give permissions to the third-party app. I'm seeing it in the comments. Somebody's ahead of me. On Twitter, somebody sent me the permissions page for one particular app, in which the permission, if you didn't read it carefully, and you just said, sure, I give you permission, it would give the third-party app permission to follow and unfollow your Twitter accounts for you without your permission. You would give the permission once, and then forever the app would be able to do whatever it wanted on your Twitter account. What app do you think it was? Here's my big story. Or, again, I might just be wrong. And you'll get to check this. You actually will be able to check this. So, I was keeping you up to date about the story of Ambassador Richard Grenell's account, where a number of you, including me, we had followed him on Twitter at one point and then got somehow unfollowed. And I had given you 3 hypotheses for how that could happen. I'm going to add a 4th, and the 4th is pretty darn good. But that's the part you're going to check for me. So I don't assert it as fact. I assert it as something I want you to check for me, and then we'll figure out if it's a fact. If it is, it's the biggest thing happening this year. All right? So hypothesis number 1 would be Twitter management had decided to rig the election and was ordering its employees to, put their finger on some accounts. I don't think that's likely. Indeed, I think that's deeply unlikely based on human nature, because it would be too easy to discover and the risks would be too high for somebody who's already doing well and is in senior management of a major technology company. It's just not a risk reward that makes any sense from a senior management perspective. So I think the odds that there's somebody in Twitter management who's making a decision to throttle people, very low odds. Then you have the bug concept. Well, maybe it's just a bug that they haven't found out. I also think that's very low chance because it's such a massive bug and it would be an easy one to fix. I can't believe it would go so long and it would just be a bug and somehow it hadn't been fixed. So I would reject the bug hypothesis and the it's coming from management hypothesis. But then you have is there a rogue element within the company? And I don't know how to put an odds on that, but you can't rule that one out. It's just that we don't have any evidence of it. And probably, unless it was a lot of people in on it, it seems like somebody would have noticed. Some programmer who was not, let's say, in on it, probably would have noticed. Not necessarily, but probably. So I would say the odds of it just being a bad actor, can't rule it out, but the odds are not high. Here comes hypothesis number 4. Here's the one you're going to check. Turns out that when you try to connect some apps to Twitter, to make your apps work together, you have to give permissions to the third-party app. I'm seeing it in the comments. Somebody's ahead of me. On Twitter, somebody sent me, in fact, let me call them out, Ruth Esperanzo, on Twitter, sent me the permissions page for one particular app in which the permission, if you didn't read it carefully, and you just said, sure, I give you permission, it would give the third-party app permission to follow and unfollow your Twitter accounts for you without your permission. You would give the permission once, and then forever the app would be able to do whatever it wanted on your Twitter account. What app do you think it was? Here it comes. TikTok. I'm just gonna let that sit in. Just let that sink in for a little bit. TikTok. Do you know who owns TikTok? China. Now, here's what I want you to do. If any of you have both TikTok and Twitter, or you can actually test it by just, I'm not sure what the condition is when you're signing up for TikTok. Does it ask you to connect to Twitter? Because, so here's the fact check. Fact check for me that part of the TikTok process involves a page that gives you the option, which you might not read the details of. Does it give you the option to let TikTok control your follows and unfollows? If it does, it's the biggest story of the year. Am I wrong? And if it doesn't, then I have some questions about who sent it to me. But check it. Just check it, okay? Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that society has been warned about TikTok. I believe we've been warned that the Chinese government might be using apps and technology to get a little influence that they should not have. So some of you probably immediately picked up another device and said, what the heck, and are looking at this right now. So by the time we're done with the Periscope, we might actually have confirmation. Now, somebody says, do I use it? No, I don't use the app, but remember, it wouldn't be me who uses the app. It would be just one of us. So you'd only need one person if one person has given permission, that's probably all it takes. So I don't use the app, so I'm not vulnerable in that particular way, nor would I. I would never use a Chinese app if I knew I was using it. All right, so go check that. We'll see if that's the biggest thing in the thing. Now, if I were China, and let's say hypothetically I had some way to influence who gets followed and doesn't get followed, how would you do it? In other words, would you randomly have people followed and unfollowed? No, you would make a decision about when it makes sense for China. And I think you would pick the people who are the most influential and also talk on this topic. So you'd have to be influential in general, but also say things that China doesn't like you to say or be on the party that it doesn't want to win. That would probably include Ambassador Grenell. If you are China, do you think that the things that Ambassador Grenell says are things you would like to have greater influence or lesser influence? Probably lesser. Same with me. Who talks down about China more than I do? Not many people.